Buongiorno, buon popolo. This week, 2 beehives arrived in the vicarage garden. You might be aware that a group of us began beekeeping theory training at the start of March. And after 2 sessions in the church hall, the last part of our theory training was completed online with our trainer Ian from Newcastle and District Beekeepers Association. The plan was that we would then undertake some practical training in groups by accompanying Ian on hive inspection visits during the spring, with a view to establishing our own St. Francis colony in the summer. However, the lockdown has forestalled us, and so we have moved to a plan B, whereby Ian has moved 2 of his own hives to the vicarage garden, and he will come and visit them each week. In the first instance, from an appropriate distance of course, I will observe him, and over time I hope that other people, either as individuals or in couples, might also come and watch him. As the lockdown might be relaxed, it might be possible for slightly larger groups to gather to undertake some practical training later in the season. But at least in the meantime, we can get used to having bees around. So far, so good. Ian did his first inspection visit yesterday, and the bees seem to have taken to their new surroundings. They're collecting pollen, and the brood is growing. The crown board separating the brood box from the super has been removed, and so the colony can begin to store food as nectar, pollen bread and honey in the frames in the super. Those who know their bee lingo will know what all that means. Of course, I'm just showing off. For me, it's all just theory so far. But I have to say, the project is a good example of looking forward. It's a contribution to the local ecology, and I hope it's an inspiration to others. Over time, I hope that people might like to get involved or even start their own colonies. Alongside this, the Eco Group has begun to plan replanting the shrubs along the south wall of the church, and also planting 2 apple trees in the north garden, leaving the part between the path and the hedge, i.e. the part of the lawn that's not the memorial garden, to grow as meadow grass through the season. Meanwhile, I understand that Brian is going to plant some gooseberry bushes in the gaps in the hedge, so filling in those spaces and, in due time, giving us some wild fruit. This week, we are sending out a booklet called Stations of the Resurrection. It's a complementary resource to the Easter Pilgrim booklet, which has also just been sent out. John has compiled this from resources provided on the Church of England website, and it will also be available as a document on the prayer resources page of our own parish website. This can be used at any time for meditation or reflection. But we're also going to experiment by using it for a service by Zoom this Sunday at 5 o'clock. We've emailed everyone on our database who has consented to receiving emails with an invitation, and a number of people have replied, and so we're looking forward to having our first St. Francis Zoom service. Last week we managed to live stream a service of evening prayer on Facebook, and also with Sarah I have recorded a service of Compline, which is available on the parish website as well as on the Facebook communications group page. At a time like this, it seems important to look forward. And it seems to me that just as our eco activities are enabling us to contribute to a better future, so our gentle experimentation with electronic forms of worship and meeting will unlock new ways of being church in the future. Nothing will replace the reassurance of being in the presence of other people for worship and fellowship, but the opportunity to expand the number of people who can share with us, either because they're away or unable to get out of the house, is one that perhaps we have not explored enough until this crisis has challenged us to find ways of doing so. One of my retired colleagues also reflected recently at a chapter meeting that this crisis is also causing him to think more about gratitude, how we say thank you. The weekly clap for NHS and other care and key workers is an example of society striving to find ways of doing this. I wonder how churches can contribute to this need. The gospel is all about the grace of God, appreciating his generosity in creation and his total self-offering in Jesus Christ. This pattern of sacrificial love is offered to us as a pattern to follow, and those of us who are shaped by the Christian faith perhaps take it for granted as a way of thinking that many people just don't have a chance to do. If life is shaped by the need to survive, or worrying about the future, or fear of loss, it can be unsettling and unhappy. In the gospel, Jesus reminded us to consider the lilies of the field and the birds of the air. If there had been bees around when he was preaching, he might have pointed to them as well. For so much in nature reminds us of the generosity of the Creator. And so, a demeanour of thanksgiving is one which perhaps might help society to look forward with a greater sense of purpose and commitment to providing for our children and grandchildren. As I said, none of this feels new in the context of church, but I wonder if it's something that we should begin to say and proclaim more clearly in the coming weeks and months as everyone ponders what the future might be like, even as we might have to continue social distancing and infection control for a while longer than we first anticipated. I'll finish with a prayer of St. Francis that you might have heard me use before. It's known as the absorbiat. That's a Latin word meaning to be swallowed up or engrossed in something. In this context, to be absorbed by the love of God. May the power of your love, Lord Christ, fiery and sweet as honey, so absorb our hearts as to withdraw them from all that is under heaven. Grant that we may be ready to die for love of your love, as you died for love of our love.